Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Tech Education in Early Childhood on Amogate Radio Communications. I am Anointed Excel. And today we are about to tackle one of the biggest challenges facing educators worldwide. You know what I discovered about teachers this week? Teachers from Lagos to London, from rural Kenya to urban Brazil. They are all saying the same thing. I know I need to teach tech literacy to young children, but where is the curriculum? Where is the roadmap? Where are the age-appropriate activities that actually make sense for my students in my context? And that's when it hits me that we are living in what I call the curriculum desert. Think about it. We have amazing curricula for traditional subjects that have been refined over decades. We know exactly how to teach reading to a 5-year-old, maths to a 7-year-old, and science to a 9-year-old. But technology education for young children, it's like we are wandering in the desert, desperately looking for an oasis of proven, practical, and local relevant guidance. Some schools are using curricula designed for teenagers. Others are making it up as they go along. Most are paralyzed, doing nothing because they don't know where to start. But here's the beautiful truth that I've discovered. The most innovative teachers worldwide aren't waiting for someone else to create the perfect curriculum. They are designing it on their own, rooted in communities, responsive to their students' needs, and it's absolutely breathtaking. Today's episode is titled Designing a Local Tech Curriculum for Ages 3 to 10, the Tech Curriculum Desert. We are going to map out this desert together, find those hidden oases of innovation, and give you the tools to create your own educational ecosystem that works for your students wherever you are. Last week, we had our minds completely blown by the unplugged computer science revolution happening in resource-constrained regions worldwide. Let me quickly take you back through the incredible journey because it sets the perfect foundation for today's conversation. We discovered that some of the most innovative tech education isn't happening in Silicon Valley classrooms with latest devices. It is happening in rural Rwanda schools, where children learn sorting algorithms by literally sorting themselves by height. It's happening in Bangladesh, where teachers use origami to teach programming concepts through step-by-step paper folding. It's happening in Peru, where students optimize market routes using stones and dirt drawing. The research was mind-blowing. MIT's Mitchell Resnick showed us that the most important part of learning to program isn't the programming itself. It's the thinking processes that programming develops. UNESCO's study of 10,000 students across 15 countries proved that student learning through unplugged activities showed 40% better problem-solving skills and 60% faster mastery when they eventually use actual computers. But here is what really got me excited. We learned that the fundamental concepts of digital literacy are pattern recognition, algorithm thinking, decomposition, abstraction, logical reasoning, and they can all be taught without any technology. And often, they are taught more effectively without technology because students have to focus on the thinking rather than getting distracted by flashy interfaces. The neuroscience backed this up beautifully. Dr. Patricia Kuh's research showed that children learn abstract concepts better than when they engage in multiple scenes. Kinesthetics, visuals, auditory, and social learning are all working together. When students physically manipulate objects to learn computational concepts, they build stronger, more durable neural pathways than passive screen interaction creates. We saw how communities with the biggest resource constraints were developing the most creative solutions. Ethiopia's human network, where students become data packets, India's cardboard computers, Mexico's playground programming, or even Ghana's community computing challenges. The paradigm shift was profound. From thinking tech education requires technology to understanding that tech education requires thinking. And that brings us to today's critical question. If we know this principle works, if we understand that the best tech education often happens without device, how do we design systematic, age-appropriate curricula that work for children as young as 3 years old? How do we create educational experiences that are deeply rooted in local context while preparing children for the global digital future? That's the challenge we are tackling today, and trust me, the solutions are more exciting than you can imagine. Let me paint you a picture of the curriculum desert that educators are navigating right now. Picture this. You are a preschool teacher in Lagos, Nigeria. Your 4-year-olds are curious, brilliant, and full of questions. You know that by the time they graduate university, they'll be working in jobs that don't even exist. You know they need digital literacy skills, and you know computational thinking will be the fundamental as reading and writing. But what curriculum do you use? The international curricula are designed for context with reliable electricity, one-to-one device ratio, and teachers with computer science backgrounds. The local curricula, well, they barely exist for early childhood tech education. You searched online and find resources created for Americans, Finnish schools, and Australian cities. They assume access to tablets, computers, and high-speed internet. They reference cultural context your school don't even share. They use materials you can't access and examples that don't resonate. Or maybe you're a teacher in rural Mexico. Your students speak indigenous language at home, Spanish at school, and you want them to be prepared for the digital future. But every tech curriculum you find assumes English proficiency and urban cultural references. Perhaps you are in urban India, where you have 60 students in one classroom, 3 different grade levels, and parents who are skeptical about technology education for young children. The available curricula assumes small class size, single grade teaching, and family support for tech integration. This is the curriculum desert. Vast stretches of educational needs with very few reliable contextual appropriate resources. But here's what I've discovered in my research. The teachers who are thriving aren't waiting for someone else to solve these problems. They are becoming curriculum designers themselves, creating educational oases that transform their students' lives. Before we dive into these specific activities and local adoption, we need to understand how young children's brain actually develop. Because here is the thing, if we design curricula that fight against natural development, we will fail. But if we align with how children's mind naturally grow, we will create experiences that feel like play but build profound capabilities. Age 3 to 4, the pattern seekers. At this age, children's brains are obsessed with patterns. They notice that leaves fall from autumn, that bedtime comes after dinner, that certain sounds make certain words. This is the perfect time to introduce pattern recognition, the foundation of all computational thinking. But here's what is crucial about 3 and 4-year-olds learning through their whole bodies. They need to move, touch, manipulate, and explore. Any tech curriculum for this age must be physical, sensory, and embedded in play. Age 5 to 6, the rule makers. Children at this age are fascinated by rules and sequences. They love games with clear steps. They create elaborate imaginary worlds with consistent logic, and they are beginning to understand cause and effect relationship. This is when we can introduce algorithm thinking, not through code, but through cooking recipes, game instructions, and storytelling with clear sequences. Age 7 to 8, the problem solvers. Now, children can hold multiple ideas in their mind simultaneously. They can plan ahead, consider alternatives, and understand that big problems can be broken down into smaller pieces. This is the perfect age for decomposition and debugging activities, taking apart complex challenges and figuring out what went wrong when their solutions don't work. Age 9 to 10, the abstract thinkers. Finally, children can think symbolically. They understand that numbers represent quantities. The map represents real places, and that drawings can represent ideas. This is when we can introduce abstraction and symbolic thinking, understanding how computers use symbol to represent everything from pictures to sound to ideas. The key insight is this: every culture in the world has traditional activities that develop these exact cognitive skills. The brilliant curriculum designers aren't importing foreign activities, they are identifying the local practices that already build computational thinking, then making those connections explicit. Now let me share you how some educators worldwide are taking these developmental principles and creating curricula that are deeply rooted in their local context while building universal digital literacy skills. But before that, we'll go for a quick short commercial break and we'll be right back.
Harmogate, founded in 2008 out of a desire to build transgenerational structures for organizations, institutions, and nations. We have worked with large businesses, international development organizations, and public sector ministries and agencies. Harmogate, our uniqueness is that we do not just work for you, we work with you. For example, we do not leave you to the task after sourcing talent that will help the new hire settle into robust leadership development programs. We are technical experts in advising and supporting institutions on strategy and leadership, artificial intelligence, strategic human resource management, public sector reform, finance, audit and tax, FAT, and strategic communications. We do all this and more out of a desire to transformations through institutions and organizations. For further inquiries, email contact@theharmogate.org or call +234 810 999 6666 +234 807 957 4151 and +161 0504 6026 www.theharmogate.org. Harmogate, building to endure and transforming nations through institutions and organizations.
Welcome back. This has been Tech Education in Early Childhood on Harmogate Radio Communications. Now let me show you how educators worldwide are taking these developmental principles and creating curricula that are deeply rooted in their local context while building universal digital literacy skills. Nigerian, Yoruba pattern and binary thinking. In Ibadan, early childhood educator Folake Adebayo realized that traditional Yoruba textile patterns are perfect for teaching binary concepts. She has 3-year oaths to create patterns using only two colors of two bottle caps, red and white, representing 1 and 0. The children don't know they are learning binary code. They think they are making traditional patterns like their grandmother. But they are building the foundational understanding that all computer information is the combination of just two symbols, which is 1 and 0. By age 5, these children can read binary patterns, create complex sequence, and understand how simple rules can create infinite varieties. In Peru, we have the Cupo and data storage. Teacher Maria uses a traditional Incan Cupo system to teach data organization. Children create their own Cupo using colorful strings and notes to record information about their families, their communities, and their environments. They are learning data structure, information encoding, and systematic organization. The core concept for any database or filing system, but they are doing it in their ancestral traditions. In Ghana, we have the Adinkra symbol and logic gates as symbols. Each symbol represents a concept, and children learn to combine symbols to create more complex meaning. These children are learning Boolean logic, how simple true or false statements combine to create complex reasoning, the same logic that powers every computer chip and every search engine. In Bangladesh, we have the village games and algorithm. Teacher Rashida transforms traditional village games into algorithm design challenges. Children play Huda Hudi, which is hide and seek, but must first design search strategies, discuss efficiency, and optimize their approaches. They are learning the same concept taught in computer science courses about search algorithms, but they are learning through games their parents and grandparents played. We also have Indian. Teacher Priya uses traditional floor patterns to teach geometrical algorithms. Children follow precise rules to create complex design using rice flour and colored powders. They learn coordinates, symmetry, repetition, and geometric transformations, the mathematical foundation underlining all computer graphics and animation. The genius in these approaches, the children are simultaneously connecting with their cultural heritage and developing cutting-edge cognitive skills. They are not choosing between tradition and innovation. They are discovering that tradition is innovation. Now let's get practical. Based on what we know about children development and local adaptation principles, here is how to design a tech curricula for each age group that works anywhere in the world. Age 3 to 4, foundation through play. The core focus for this age is pattern recognition and sequencing. Week 1 to 4, use simple patterns. Use local materials like bottles, cap, beans, stone. Children can also create A-B patterns like red, blue, red, blue. You can also use clapping patterns with traditional rhythms or movement patterns during circle time. Week 5 to 8, the complex patterns. Use ABC patterns using 3 local objects, predicting what's coming next in the story sequence, and finding patterns in nature during outdoor exploration. Week 9 to 12, creating patterns. Designing their own patterns for classmates to continue. Pattern debugging or fixing broken sequence. Then, introducing the concept that patterns help us to predict and organize. Local adaptation strategy. Use materials and cultural references that children already know. In Nigeria, use traditional textile. In Peru, use local market fruit. In India, use the floor designs. These patterns are universal. The materials are local. Age 5 to 6. This is where we have the sequence and logic. The core focus area for these ages is algorithm thinking and simple logic. Week 1 to 6 follow instructions. Multiple step recipe for local foods. Traditional dance steps for sequences, or building structures with clear step-by-step instructions. Week 7 to 12, creating instructions. Writing instructions for simple tasks like brushing your teeth, getting dressed. Creating treasure hunt clues with logical sequence, or teaching classmates traditional games through step-by-step explanation. Week 13 to 18, which is the debugging and optimization week. What happens when we skip this step? How can we make our instruction clearer? Or finding fastest ways to accomplish tasks. Local adaptation strategy. Embed learning into daily cultural practices. Use local foods for recipe algorithms, traditional games for rule making, and community celebration for event planning. Now we have the age 7 to 8, problem decomposition and systems. The core focus area for this age is breaking down complex problems and understanding systems. Week 1 to 8, big problems, small solutions. Planning community events by breaking them into manageable pieces. Understanding how families, schools, and communities work as systems. Then, solving local challenges through systematic thinking. Week 9 to 16, cause and effect network. Mapping how changes in one area affect others. Understanding feedback loops in local ecosystems, and designing solutions that work within existing systems. Week 17 to 24, creating solutions. Identifying real community problems, designing step-by-step solutions, and testing and improving their approaches. Local adaptation and strategy. Focus on real community challenges, water management in rural areas, traffic flow in urban settings, market organization, festival planning, and whatever matters in your context. Age 9 to 10, abstraction and design thinking. The core focus area for this age is symbolic thinking and creative problem solving. Week 1 to 10, symbols and representation. How do we use symbols to represent complex ideas? Creating visual languages for local concepts. Understanding how computers use symbols for everything. Week 11 to 20, design and iteration. Identifying problems that technology could solve. Designing solutions using available resources. Testing, getting feedbacks, and improving design. Week 21 to 30, system design. Creating simple system that solves real problem. Understanding how good design makes complex things simple. Preparing to transition to actual computing tools. Local adaptation strategy. Connect to local innovations and problem-solving traditions. Study how local crafts people design solutions, how tradition system works, and how communities get problem solved. The most successful local tech curricula doesn't just use local materials. They fundamentally integrate local ways of knowing, cultural values, and community priorities. Let me show you how this works in practice. Local integration. In multilingual communities, the best curricula Use children's home languages for concept development. Then, bridge to global terminology. In South Africa, educators teach repetition before introducing loops. In Mexico, they teach step by step before algorithms. This isn't just culturally sensitive, it is cognitively powerful. Children understand concepts more deeply when they first encounter them in their heart languages. We also have value system alignment. Ubuntu philosophy in South Africa emphasizes community interconnection, perfect for teaching network concepts and collaborative problem solving. Islamic principles of systematic reasoning align beautifully with logical thinking development. Indigenous circle tradition provide frameworks for design and community feedback. When curricula align with cultural values, parents become allies instead of skeptics, and children see technology education as extension of their identity rather than a foreign imposition. The most sustainable curricula use what is already available. In farming communities, optimization problem comes from crop rotation and resource management. In fishing villages, they come from weather prediction and route planning. In urban areas, they come from transportation and resource distribution. Children learn that computational thinking isn't an abstract academic exercise. It is a powerful tool for solving the challenges their own communities face. Storytelling traditions. Even culture has storytelling traditions that can embed logical thinking. West African folk tales, with their clear moral cause and effect relationship. European fairy tales with their problem solution structures. Asian parables with their layered meaning systems. When we use familiar storytelling frameworks to introduce if-then logic, children absorb computational thinking through narrative structures they already understand and love. Traditional games and activities. This is where magic really happens. Every culture has games that build computational thinking skills without anyone realizing it. Hopscotch teaches sequencing and rule following. Traditional counting games teach pattern recognition. Strategy games teach planning and optimization. Riddle teach logical reasoning and debugging. The curriculum designers who are succeeding aren't creating everything from scratch. They are identifying which traditional activities already build digital literacy skills, then making those connections explicit and systematic. When you implement locally adapted tech curricula with young children, the transformation is remarkable and rapid. Within few weeks, you will notice children start to approach problem solving more systematically. They'll break down complex tasks without being asked. They'll look for patterns everywhere, in nature, in daily routines, and in their play. Within months, their collaborative problem solving skills will skyrocket. They'll develop shared vocabulary for discussing solutions, and they will naturally debug each other's ideas and build on each other's innovation. Within a year, these children will have computational thinking skills that many teenagers lack. But more importantly, they will have confidence in their ability to solve problems, create solutions, and think systematically about challenges. And here is the beautiful part. Because their learning has been rooted in their cultural context, they will see technology as a tool for strengthening their communities, not escaping them. When they eventually encounter actual computers, they won't be intimidated or overwhelmed. They will recognize the thinking patterns they've already mastered and quickly learn to express those ideas through digital tools. This is how we create digitally literate citizens who are also culturally grounded global innovators.
Now, before we look ahead to next week, I need to directly speak to the policymakers and education managers listening to this podcast, because while teachers are innovating brilliantly on the ground, they need your support to scale these solutions systematically. You have the power to transform early childhood education across entire regions by recognizing that effective tech curricula doesn't require massive technology investments. They require strategic support for local curriculum development and teacher empowerment. Instead of waiting for international donors to provide devices, you can immediately authorize and fund local curriculum development initiative. The cost, a fraction of what you would spend on hardware that would be obsolete in 3 years. Invest in teachers training for unplugged computational thinking. Fund communities partnership that connects traditional knowledge holders to educators. Support curriculum adaptation and workshops where teachers design locally relevant activities. This creates sustainable, culturally appropriate educational infrastructure that doesn't depend on foreign technology or ongoing technical support. Create national frameworks that encourage local adaptation rather than mandating standardized approaches. Fund teachers training in development appropriate computational thinking. Support research partnership with local universities to document and refine these innovations. Most importantly, shift the narrative. Stop seeing lack of devices as a barrier and start seeing local innovations as an advantage. Your region can become the model for the world, not a follower waiting for better technology.
Speaking of transformation, next week we are exploring something absolutely revolutionary: the global integration revolution. How the world is embedding tech literacy into every learning experience. We are going to discover how the most innovative schools worldwide aren't teaching technology as a separate subject. They are weaving computational thinking into maths, science, language arts, social studies, and even physical education. It's going to challenge everything you think you know about curriculum design and show you how technology education can enhance every aspect of learning instead of competing with it. As we close today's journey through the curriculum desert, I want you to remember this: you don't need permission to start designing locally relevant tech education for young children. You don't need expensive materials or foreign expertise. You need curiosity, creativity, and connection to your community strength. Whether you start with pattern making or using local bottles, algorithm design through traditional recipe, or logical thinking through cultural stories, you are not just teaching technology skills. You are proving that innovation happens everywhere, with everything, when guided by educators who understand that the most powerful curricula grow from the ground up. The future of tech education for young children isn't going to be designed in corporate boardrooms or university labs. It's going to be designed by teachers like you, who understand your students deeply and have courage to create what they need. I am Anointed Olusunboye, and this has been Tech Education in Early Childhood on Amogate Radio Communications. Until next week, keep designing, keep adapting, and keep proving that the best education happens when we honor where children come from while preparing them for where they are going. Thank you.